Hello guys, welcome back to Sports Angle. This is Shantanu Vyas, and this video is exclusively going to be talking about the World Cup 2020. Yes, the IPL is officially over and now we are heading into the World Cup. It feels like a different vibe altogether, although a huge shout out to Chennai Super Kings before we kickstart this video on the World Cup. Now, a little background about the World Cup. Yes, two parts about it. It's finally happening. It was supposed to be taking place in 2020 in Australia, but because of the COVID outbreak, IPL had to be scheduled during November 2020, and that World Cup had to be then shifted. But because of cricket not happening, in May, in the next of October in Australia, they shifted it to India. But again, COVID hit India, with a second wave, and that avoided India to host the World Cup. After which, a lot of rescheduling took place and a lot of thinking took place, and it was then finally best for all teams to be taking place in UAE, where COVID restrictions are lesser, traveling is easier, and there is lack of quarantine. Now, what is special about this World Cup is that there's a slight change in format. The earlier part used to have 16 teams in 4 different groups, and then the top 2 teams in the groups used to play a quarterfinal, but they've cut short that. They've made it to a format called the Super 12. So there are 2 groups of 6 and 6 each, and within those 2 groups, the top 2 contenders will obviously play in the semi-finals, so there is no quarterfinals this time. And most importantly, what's going to happen is that there were 2 reserve spots in these groups for teams which were not in the top 10 rankings. Now, obviously, in the first group you have had Namibia and Scotland coming out, and in the second group you have had Sri Lanka and Bangladesh coming out of the particular qualifiers. So let's talk about the 2 groups in fine detail. Now, the first group consists of teams such as India, Namibia, New Zealand, Afghanistan, Scotland, and Pakistan. Now, some might say, oh, it's not a very competitive group, or it is, a group which, usually you will see 3 favorite teams, battle it out between India, New Zealand, and Pakistan. But I don't agree with that, because Scotland actually beat Bangladesh and they put up a good stellar show. So I'm not very compliant with that. And coming into a World Cup, every team, especially the teams who do not feature that much into the yearly calendar in prominent events, they have that motivation to leave a mark in such a huge and marquee event. And when they do that, they will play their best cricket, and they have this togetherness. They have a very good vibe within themselves. So they will put on a good show. So Scotland and Namibia cannot be discounted out. And obviously Afghanistan. Now, Afghanistan going into this particular tournament, this is one of their, 3rd or 4th key tournament in which they are participating. So, they are now well versed with the pressure. They understand, what it takes to, do well in an ICC tournament. I expect them to do well. But till the time, I do not expect them to make a semi-finals. But I think the objective for them as an internal unit should be to have a good tournament. So that's to win maximum amount of matches and at least cause one upset with India, New Zealand, or Pakistan. Now, talking about the likes of India, New Zealand, and Pakistan. India obviously has one of the most balanced sides and the most lucrative sides when it comes to T20 cricket. There is not that one team, where you can absolutely discount anyone, and that is India. Because of the balance they have, you have a solid top order in KL Rahul, Rohit Sharma, and Virat Kohli. Now, Surya Kumar Yadav, Ishan Kishan have battled out for the number 4 spot. Rishabh Pant is a national T20 player, and you have Jasprit Bumrah as well, who can fire all cylinders when it comes to both the opening of the bowling as well as the depth of the bowling. And Ashwin is back into the squad. There's Ravindra Jadeja as well. But you also cannot discount out New Zealand, because New Zealand, when it comes to ICC tournaments, they put in a shift. Yes, they have these kind of players who step up to pressure situations, but they've always had that problem of going over the last hurdle, going over that semi-final, going over that final, and claiming that trophy. Some people will say that, oh, they did that for the World ICC Test Championship, but that's a completely different ballgame to a knockout tournament like this, which spans out over a shorter span, and it has completely different dynamics. The third and the last team, which I would really like people to not disrespect or to not discount, is that of Pakistan. Yes, I know I might get a lot of hate for this. I might get a lot of eyes rolled up for this. But let me tell you, Pakistan statistically is very well placed, because nobody plays more matches in the UAE than them. They have a very good understanding of the conditions, both from a shorter and a longer format perspective. They've had a good coaching revamp. their internal cricket is going under a lot of good revamp. So it's a place where there is going to be a lot of good spirit. Babar Azam is going to be leading them for the very first time into a World Cup. So you can see that new style of leadership. You can see probably a stellar batsman who will be going out to lead there. You will have players like Shaheen Afridi who are tipped to be big superstars. So one can only hope that Pakistan puts in a shift. And yes, this group has probably the biggest match in the history of sports, which is India versus Pakistan on October 24th. Make sure you're out there cheering for India, and hope India get this over the line, and this will be a stellar watch, and what a way to open the tournament for India. Now, mind you, I will do a separate video for India versus Pakistan, which will be coming out on the eve of the match, and I hope you guys like that video too. But for now, we can discuss about Group B. Now you want to label this group as Group B, Group 2. I don't want to call it the conventional name. This is the group of death. Yes, you heard that right. And the reason why I'll tell you is because of the team that constitutes of this group. Australia, South Africa, England, West Indies, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. I mean, you have 3 world champions sitting right in this group. Like, it cannot get more feistier than this. This is going to be the ultimate test for all these teams, because I have a feeling they should allocate a World Cup for this group differently, because it's a very difficult group, and no team should feel absolutely bad if they get knocked out of this group and do not make it to the semi-finals. The reason is because this is not a group in which you might lose out because you play bad cricket. The other teams can be much better. Now, if you talk about the usual suspects such as England, Australia, West Indies, I mean, they're all usual suspects. But if you talk about England, West Indies, South Africa, you obviously have this, notion of them, playing this high, consistent level of cricket. But I will tell you one thing is that, first and foremost, England will miss the likes of Jofra Archer and Ben Stokes into their squad, because these are 2 match winners for them, and have historically also you have seen that they have taken out matches for them out of hopeless situations. Australia coming into this tournament have lesser pressure on them somehow, but a very good squad, and Glenn Maxwell is a player for them who we saw in the IPL, how he stepped up for RCB. So you see a more responsible, a much more mature Glenn Maxwell. So that will only help the chances for Australia in this particular World Cup. Now for South Africa, they're a young squad. They've had experiences of individual players in the IPL, in other domestic leagues, but collectively they are yet to play together, as the squad has been under massive transition. So it'll be really exciting to see as to what South Africa will do. South Africa is waiting to make that stamp on a major ICC tournament since forever now, and this could be their chance for actually making that huge stamp after the debacle which happened in 2019 in the 50-over World Cup in England and Wales. I feel this is a very good platform for them to show that hey, we are not dead yet, we are in contention for winning stuff, and we are here not to just be passengers and not to be bench warmers. We are here to put on a show. Now any T20 tournament is very dull without the West Indians. Yes, the West Indians bring a sense of flair, they bring a sense of non-technical thinking and much more freedom-based cricket, which is what T20 demands, right? So West Indies, although you would have seen, they are the defending champions, and individually, again, one of the best. But I don't know, collectively, they have not played together that much to have that kind of lasting impact in like a tournament. So I'm also waiting to see that as to how they do. I wouldn't say their situation is much like South Africa. It's slightly more different because they come into this tournament knowing how to win this tournament. They know what it takes to win this tournament, to know who has to stand up where. And they've always had those kind of key players standing up for them, be it senior or junior players or up-and-coming talent. Now, Sri Lanka as a squad under transition did very well in that series against India, which we saw, back in back in June, July. And they were very good, and they put in a shift out there. They have had good up and coming talent in Dushmantha Chavira. All these players, Lahiro Tirvane, all of their players are probably at the fittest they are, and they have had a good run of games. Bangladesh also, they come in with a lot of what people would like to say, a lot of grit, a lot of courage, and let's see what they do. But most overall, I think that this group is going to be very, very clear cut, and it's going to be very, very difficult to get out of this group. The ones who get out of this group should emerge as champions, in my opinion. But this is cricket. This is T20 cricket. Who knows? Now, my opinion on the World Cup. Yes, my opinion on the World Cup is going to be pretty simple. One, there's going to be a lot of pressure. You're playing a T20 event after 5 years. This is not the IPL. This is not like the Big Bash. Stakes are different here. The pressure is different here. 140, 150 can be defended. We even saw like in the IPL, like these tracks are slightly slower than what we saw in last year's IPL, where you had good tracks, 220s were being chased easily. But it's not going to be the case here, and this I think adds more flavor to the tournament because it levels the playing field between the batsman and the bowler. So let us see what happens in this particular tournament in terms of the pressure part of it. Pitches I think are going to be slightly more slower, so a lot of spin, a lot of leg spin, and a lot of off spin, and a lot of left arm spin is going to be under a lot of scrutiny and a lot of contention, because you will see not only them taking wickets but also squeezing runs in spots where batsmen would like to score them pretty easily. But yes, this is going to be a very, very difficult tournament for the batsman. Only for the reason is these are not those usual pitches where the ball comes onto the bat and you flick it and it goes for a six. Here the batsman will have to work hard for every run, and that is going to be really good to see, because there are a lot of skillful batsmen in this tournament, such as Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, Babar Azam, and Glenn Maxwell, Aaron Finch. A lot of good batsmen, and it'll only be good to see as to what kind of feistiness and what kind of competition they add. Talking about the fast bowlers, obviously you're looking for the likes of Jasprit Bumrah, you're looking obviously Josh Hazlewood. All these stalwarts are going to be there. Obviously you're going to be missing the likes of Jofra Archer, who is missing it because of injury. But I don't know. Let's see what happens in this particular tournament. My favorites for the tournament obviously are clearly India, Australia, and a surprise in South Africa. Yes, you might laugh at me because it's South Africa, they're known to choke and stuff like that, but I do believe that they're going to be having a lasting impact in this tournament. But let's see. Do let me know your predictions below. Who do you think is going to finish top two in the two given groups we talked about? And yeah, be a bit bold and even predict the winner for me.